You won't believe how fast someone who rules a neighborhood can go from dreaded to derided. It all started with a locked garage door, and 10 days later, the entire block was laughing at her. That Thursday evening, Calvin Rhodes didn't notice the twilight breeze or the sprinklers. What caught his attention first wasn't smells or sounds. It was the garage door. Closed. Locked. Wrong. He lived alone in a 2-story brick house on the south side of Charlotte, and his routine never changed. Morning, coffee, keys, remote click, garage up, car out. Evening, garage up, then down. But now, as his sedan crunched up his driveway after work, the sight of his shuttered garage sent a spike of alarm through his chest. He pressed the remote. The door rattled slightly, then lifted, revealing not his own car, but a Lexus RX, silver with pearl paint, parked neatly inside. Stunned, he shut off the motor and stepped out, eyes narrowing. He didn't own a Lexus. He let no one borrow his garage. Then he saw Marjorie Kellum. She stood just inside the doorway that connected the garage to his kitchen. Clipboard in hand, as always, her sharp chin lifted, her bob of blonde hair perfect. She looked like justice personified, or tyranny. "You want to explain why your Lexus is sitting in my garage?" Calvin said, leaving his briefcase on the hood. Marjorie didn't flinch. Arms folded, chin tilted, her Judge Judy mode engaged. "Street parking violates community standards," she snapped. "Your garage was empty. I was at a board meeting. I couldn't very well leave it on the curb. Temporary situation." "Temporary?" Calvin laughed short and bitter. "You broke into my house." "It wasn't breaking in. The garage door was unlocked when I tried it. That's practically an invitation. And as a homeowner here, you should appreciate that I'm preventing violations. Cars on the curb make this place look like an apartment complex." "Invitation?" he repeated. "This is private property, my garage, my lock. You don't get to decide what's convenient for you." Marjorie sighed, as if he were being absurd for questioning her authority. "You're being dramatic. I'll have it out soon. Just relax." "Relax," he echoed bitterly. Years of voltage spikes at work, contractors who never showed up, calls from his boss. Yes, he'd had enough. This time, though, he decided to think instead of yell. He picked up his briefcase. "If you think this is acceptable, we'll see how acceptable it feels in a week." Marjorie frowned. Confused. What was that supposed to mean? He didn't answer. He walked past her, pressed the button to close the garage. The heavy door rumbled down, rapping shut. He locked the door between garage and house. She was still shouting as he wheeled his suitcase out the front door to a waiting rideshare. Something in him laughed. Disbelief. Relief. By dawn he'd left for Puerto Rico. 10 days of salt, sun, rum, no HOA meetings. Meanwhile in Charlotte, the Lexus sat behind his sealed garage door, and Marjorie realized sharply how little power she had once she lost control of the narrative. She pounded sleep away with worry. Lexus locked up. Calls unanswered. Her husband Douglas was not impressed. Over coffee she told him, "He can't hold my property like this." Douglas set down his mug, brows knit. "You parked in someone's garage," he said gently. "Even if you think it was okay, he won't see it your way." Marjorie flared. "I did what the rules demand. No car on the street past dusk. I was enforcing standards." Douglas put his mug aside, rubbed his forehead. "You want to enforce standards, but you broke a boundary of someone else's home." She flung open her HOA binder, reading rules aloud, page by page. None said that she, president of the association, could appropriate someone's garage, Later, she marched to see Caroline Ruiz, HOA treasurer, after a shift at the hospital. Caroline listened, bleary-eyed, then firm-voiced, "That's his property, Marjorie. There's nothing here that gives you that right." The blow stung. For years, neighbors cringed when she rattled off rule violations. Now one of them, one she thought friendly, challenged her. At first, humiliation was manageable, edged at the corners of her world. But day by day, it grew sharper. She didn't have the Lexus. She didn't have control. She had borrowed quips, looks, laughter behind her back. On day 3, Gordon Hayes, retired postal worker, offered her a lift. She accepted, bitterness curdling with each clank of his door shutting. She always lectured him about lawn care or mailbox paint. Now she was taking rides. Word spread rapidly. In casual conversation, at the pool, over coffee, at school drop-offs. On day 4, she appeared at the board meeting. Clipboard nowhere in sight. The table started. She tried to speak. But someone asked where the Lexus was. Pauline Jennings, secretary, smiled that thin, satisfied smile. Everyone else giggled. Laughter, low at first, then clearer. Marjorie tried angle by angle. "Calvin illegally used my car." Caroline cut in, "You illegally used his garage." The room closed in. She heard murmurs of lost respect. Leadership credibility questioned. Her voice crackled. Words that had always bent others into place now battered her own standing. Meanwhile, Calvin was sunbathing. At Isla Verde beach, he let waves wash his feet and worries drift away. He strolled old San Juan's pastel alleys. Check-ins from Marjorie flooded his phone, but he didn't answer. Letting things settle, he thought. Letting people see what a man silent in return for wrongs could teach. Every time his phone buzzed, he smiled glancingly. Stories formed in his mind. Marjorie turning herself into the spectacle. He imagined the moment he'd return. The garage door remoted open by his hand, releasing the Lexus and the tension. Back in Charlotte, Marjorie's world shrunk. Her husband tired of chauffeuring her shouty errands. Rides stopped. She walked. Grocery runs by bus. She caught stares. Those who used to dread her notices now whispered as she passed. On day 6, she flagged down Harold Benton, the handyman, half hoping he'd help her break into Calvin's garage. He refused, said it was breaking and entering. She bit her lip, walked home in silence, dignity cracking. Pranks started, toy car left in her driveway, paper plate taped to her mailbox, reserved parking. Kids chalked garages. Neighbors drew outlines of the Lexus in driveways. She tore away first few, furious, but then she stopped reacting. Fuel for them was her outrage. She stopped feeding it. In her house, there were nights she stared at walls. Mirrors reflected a woman she barely recognized. Blouse wrinkled, face harsh lines, hair less perfect. The president of the HOA. Still president on paper, but powerless in practice. Then came the HOA board meeting on day 8. Usually she relished board meetings, her chance to sift through bylaws, deliver verdicts. Now, table whispered, eyes rolled. Pauline raised her phone, as if ready to capture the next humiliation. Caroline confronted her, gently but sharply. "We expect our president to model behavior, to show leadership, not stubbornness." Laughter cracked across the table. Someone said, "Instead of cars on the curb, you put your own car in someone else's garage." The line landed. She opened her mouth, closed it. Douglas was there, voice rough, telling her people weren't following out of respect. They were waiting for her to slip so they could laugh. She stood abruptly, stormed out, crushing her dignity in each step. Board members watched her go. Neighbors watching from porches, phones in hand. By day 9, she avoided gazes but couldn't escape whispers. Chalk, toy cars, cardboard signs. Someone drew a crude poster. Lexus locked in Rhodes's garage. She passed families. Women smiled, but not at her. She tried to stand tall, but shoulders curled in. Officer Ryan Copley arrived when she tried to pry the garage door open. He told her, flatly, "Trespassing, private property. You risk charges if you force this." Cameras clicked. Neighbors peered. She dropped screwdriver. Rage and shame roiling. Meanwhile, Calvin's time in Puerto Rico winds down. He watches sunsets, eats street food, laughs. Lydia asked him, "What's so funny?" He said, "My HOA president just walked into her own trap." She laughed. He sipped coffee. On day 10, Calvin's return. Neighborhood lit by dusk, porch lights, children lingering outside. When he steps out of his ride, everybody's eyes on him. Gordon Hayes raises a beer can. "Welcome home, Calvin." Teenagers hover, phones up. Calvin halves the welcome, smiles, loads his suitcase, then pushes the garage remote. Door lifts, the silver Lexus still inside, dusty but obvious. Neighbors erupt in laughter, applause, relief. Marjorie bursts out of her house, heels clicking. "You release my car immediately," she cries. He leans against the door frame, unfazed. Looks like it's already released. Silence ripples. She demands recognition for her suffering. He counters, "Respect isn't something you demand with a clipboard. It's earned, and you've spent the last 10 days proving you don't have it." No shout, no threat, just clarity. She picks up keys, hands shaking, starts her car, drives 20 feet, pulls into her driveway. Headlights carve a path. Douglas at her side, arms crossed. He stays silent. Crowd disperses. After that night, the neighborhood changed. Larry children rode bikes without worry. Basketballs bounced into driveways. No one dashed to hide noise complaints. Wind chimes, once deemed distracting, jingled. Porch lights glowed warm, rather than surveilled. Calvin watched from his porch with his coffee, thinking, sometimes the quietest stand is the strongest. He hadn't needed to yell. He'd simply asserted a boundary. And when that boundary was crossed, not by force or anger, but by resolve, people saw something real. Douglas walked over the next morning. "I don't know what to say," he said. "I told her it was wrong, but she didn't listen." "You might have taught her more than all of us combined," Calvin said quietly. Marjorie drove past late that afternoon, her Lexus moving, but her posture small. Neighbors watched. Some glared, or perhaps not glare, just acceptance. She parked, walked inside. No announcements, no confrontation. Her downfall wasn't sudden exactly. It was 10 days of small moments, being laughed at, being powerless, watching her own power dissolve. Calvin sat down later that night, thinking about authority, that fragile thing built over years, but easy to break. She'd ruled with fear, with clipboards, notices, threats. But when someone simply refused to be ruled, her whole make-believe empire unraveled. From here on, the neighborhood felt different. Calmer, kinder maybe, more human. Rules still mattered, but so did kindness, respect, boundaries. And Marjorie? Perhaps she would come back into the light. But she would have to learn. To lead without fear. To respect what isn't hers. To see people not as subjects, but neighbors. If there's a lesson in all this, power gained through fear lasts only as long as people are too scared to speak. The moment they aren't, the foundations crack. Sometimes the quietest stand, locking a door, staying calm, teaches more than the loudest speeches. So, If you ever feel tempted to rule by fear, by position, by the threat of consequence, remember, that kind of power is fragile. But respect, real respect, for boundaries, for others, is hard to win and easy to lose. And sometimes the most powerful voice is silence.